us, I would like to say thank you so much for coming to visit. There are 3 companies here that are very proud to show you what we do. It is a delight to be in Virginia. As you heard from many people, we're all excited to be in this part of the world. And we're really excited to represent Virginia and also America when so many international visitors come to Christiansburg, Virginia to visit our company and see our technology. And we would love to hear your thoughts and your impressions and things that you think are important for us to know as we work on America's future.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. And thanks to everyone at MELD and PrintWorks and AeroPro for just letting us invade today. I've been wanting to come down. I was here a long time ago, so long ago that I didn't even really remember until I was walking down the hall and Nancy pointed out a picture of me from 2014. But it's really good to come back. In the Senate, I'm on some committees that really relate very directly to the innovation and the work that you're doing. Principally, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and I'm the chairman of the Sea Power Subcommittee, so ships, subs, Marine, Navy, which for Virginia is a really fantastic committee. We've got the largest Navy base in the world, and we also, I think we have the best shipbuilding and ship repair in the world in Hampton Roads. Plus, we train all the Marine officers. My oldest boy is a Marine officer, and every Marine officer gets trained at Quantico. So we are connected to all the services, but we have a particular connection to the Navy and Marines, and I love being the chair of the Sea Power Subcommittee. I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee, and an awful lot of what happens in the defense space, for example, the sale of any military equipment to other nations, to allied nations, that all actually goes through the Foreign Relations Committee, not through the Armed Services Committee. So I do a lot of military-related work on foreign relations. And then I'm on another committee that's great, health, education, labor, pension, workforce, education. How do we deal with the challenge that we have as a country now, where the unemployment rate is so low that every great employer I know is like, okay, how can we find who we need? And this is a particular challenge in the defense space. We have some pretty significant demands on our shoulders because of challenges in the world. How are we going to replenish our munition stocks after 2 years of work so closely with the Ukrainian government? How are we going to produce more subs? Because we've announced that we're doing this joint partnership with the Australians and the UK around sub production. First production here that would be then transferred to Australia, but eventually training the Aussies on how to do their own sub production. Well, you're competing for parts, you're competing for materials, you're competing for workforce. And so the Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee, which deals with the workforce side of it really ties into the other missions. Here's why I wanted to come to MELD. I guess twice in the recent couple of years, I've had some interactions with Nancy, once in connection with a proposal that was being put together for an innovation center in Southwest Virginia. And then second, we did a really interesting roundtable discussion with the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, about some of the work that's being done through Treasury to make investments in innovative businesses in Virginia and elsewhere. And in both of those iterations, Nancy was present. And I was like, I got to come down and see what MELD does. And I'm excited to learn about PrintWorks and AeroPro, but it was kind of MELD that I have to come down and see what MELD does. Some of you might have met 2 of my staffers who were here maybe about a month ago, probably in August. Caitlin Kleiber is a former Marine logistics officer who now staffs me. She's my lead staffer on the Armed Services Committee. And then Christina Cook. Christina is a defense fellow who's a Navy cryptologist. I have fellows lent to me for like a year at a time to work on the Armed Services Committee, especially people from kind of Navy, Marine background. But the technology that you have is unique in the world. I mean, and particularly maybe for my buddies in the media here, you would not see this anywhere else on the planet Earth. No other country has this. No other American competitor has it. And that's a real tribute to Nancy and all of you as innovators in the solution that MELD provides, which is the ability to do really intense additive manufacturing to produce tiny parts that are really hard to get, or massive parts for which the lead time to order is so long, the ability to produce using this technology without the lead time, without the heat, without the energy use, without the wasting of materials because you're adding rather than milling and cutting. I think it's a big game changer. And I know the early adopters within the armed services community, that's the way they feel about this too. That's the way they feel about you and what you do. And so one of the reasons to come today was not just to hear about it or read about it, but sort of see it, because then what I can do in my interactions with the Secretary of the Navy, who's been a friend for 30 years, Carlos Del Toro, or the Defense Innovation Unit, which is designed specifically to find emerging innovation technologies and move quickly from finding a great technology to putting it in use. And this is ultimately about keeping the nation safe. You know, my kid who's a Marine, he had 8 years active, 2 deployments. Now he's a reservist, but the contracting community that is producing what he and other warfighters use, he always says it's like they're part of a platoon, because you know, the platoon that he deployed once to Africa was about 50 or 60 people, but they're having a lot of capacity that they're carrying with them that is produced by great American innovators like y'all. And when you produce that capacity that helps, you know, 50 men and women suddenly be able to do pretty amazing things, that's the way he described it. You're like part of a platoon. So if you ever come to work and you want a little bit of inspiration, just think about that. The men and women who volunteer to serve in our military, and many of you are probably veterans or military families, have connection to military families. The men and women who are doing this every day, often in some really dangerous times, they count on you, they rely on you, and they're confident in you because they have reason to be confident. So I'm real happy to be here and just kind of see it. And I think there's real excitement about what can be done. I mean, excitement about what has been done, but I think there's excitement about what can be done. I was just saying to Nanci, here's a challenge we're doing. I'll just tell you what's one of my big headaches. We just have entered into a really amazing conceptual partnership with 2 of our greatest allies, Australia and the United Kingdom. And it's about, can we provide more integrated deterrence in the Indo-Pacific? The UK and Australia have always been great partners. One of the most powerful integrated deterrence elements we have is our fast attack subs, which are quiet, which are the best in the world, produced here in Virginia. Virginia-class subs are produced at the shipyard in Newport News in a kind of, they call it like a co-opetition with Electric Boat in Connecticut. Each shipyard produces some of the components, and then we put them together. And we're starting to do the same thing with the next category of sub called the Columbia class. But just on the Virginia class, here's a problem we're trying to solve. We have made a pledge to Australia that has no nuclear industry whatsoever. They don't have civilian nuclear. The only nuclear Australia has is medical isotopes. But they want to have nuclear subs that can be quiet and can stay under the sea for a very long time and don't need a periscope. And if it's not only U.S. subs in the Indo-Pacific, but if Australia has nuclear subs in the Indo-Pacific, we can do a lot to promote stability in the region. So we've entered into a partnership with the Aussies where we're training them in the United States right now to operate, manage, repair, refuel nuclear subs. And as they're doing that, we just graduated the first 3 Aussie sailors from the U.S. Nuclear Sub School in Georgia. So they're going to the school with the U.S. Nuclear Navy, you know, enlisteds and officers now. We've made a commitment that in the 2030s we're going to deliver from 3 to 5 Virginia-class subs to the Aussies. They're going to pay for them. So that's something we're going to have to do. But what that means is, to have meet our own needs and meet their needs, we're going to have to produce about 2.2 Virginia-class subs a year in the United States for us and them in the 2030s. Right now, we're producing 1.2 a year. So how are we going to get from 1.2 to 2.2 in about 10 years? And then after we deliver 3 to 5 subs to them, everything I'm telling you, it's all been reported. I'm not revealing anything classified. Once we deliver that to them, then they'll really train on operating nuclear subs. And by the 2040s, they will have gone from a nation with no nuclear to they'll be building their own nuclear subs in Australia. And it will be a UK design, but the subs will be just jammed full of US technology, US parts, US innovation. And it will really stitch together the nuclear navies of these three really important nations. How are we going to get from 1.2 to 2.2? And this is a big headache for us right now. We're talking to the shipyards, long lead times on parts, long lead times on materials, workforce challenges. Well, you can imagine why I'm interested in coming to MELD, because the ability of this technology to produce really parts from really simple and small, but to really big and complicated in a new and different way, with less energy use, less heat required, which means you can do it you have much more flexibility about where you can do it, but also tremendously faster, starts to help us think about, okay, this 1.2 to 2.2 problem. And I could give you 50 examples of something just like that, but it's just this one's so clear. We got to go from 1.2 Virginia-class subs to 2.2 over the course of the next decade. What you guys are doing here could be a really important part of figuring out that problem. Now, you're doing things that is much more than about sea power. The company's origin was really in the aviation space, and doing a lot of good work with the Air Force. You guys just delivered a really amazing capacity to the Army that's going to help the Army build tanks with seamless hulls, which are much more likely to withstand IED explosions or other problems, because when there are those kind of disruptions, the seams and the welds are often the most vulnerable place where the damage is done. And it's not just damage to a tank, it's damage to everybody that's in the tank. Well, okay, what MELD is able to do is to help the Army start to think about doing hulls that are seamless, that will keep people safer. And will also produce hulls a whole lot faster than the way they're being produced right now. So anyway, I'm excited about this. I'm aware of the fact that if you do something every day, sometimes you can get used to it and you're not excited about it. Even in my own job, sometimes that's walking into the Russell building every day, I sometimes forget, wow, what a great opportunity I have. So you probably come to work some days and, maybe the weather's bad and it's raining, or, you're getting pressured on a project that, be excited about what you're doing, because this is not happening anywhere else in the world. And I think what MELD can do, and what you as innovators, patriotic innovators, can do is really transformative for us. So anyway, Nanci, to you and the team, thank you for letting us come today. The other person that I want you to know, did Laura already go on?
Yes.
Laura Blevins, who has been with me this morning, she runs my Southwest Virginia operation. She lives in Abingdon. It kind of covers everywhere from Cumberland and Gap to Montgomery and Floyd. So basically standing here as far southwest as you can go in Virginia, but she's really good. And she's been here a number of times, and she'll be back. Thank you guys, good to be with you. Thank you.